upon Deputy Dara Calleary on behalf of Fianna Fáil, please.
Thank you, Concurler. The last April and May, the cervical check controversy shook our nation's faith in our health service right to the core. And the heartbreaking stories of the families and their awe and their courage and their dignity in the face of what was facing them was something that all of us were seared with at the time. The Government and the Minister made many promises in the immediate days and weeks after that controversy broke. However, it appears now that the gap between those promises and their actual delivery is one that thousands of women are beginning to fall into. Yesterday, Deputy Micheál Martin raised the impact of increased smear demand, causing backlogs, delay and ultimately invalidating a number of tests because of the missed expiry dates. The Taoiseach, in response, wouldn't or couldn't give a figure in relation to the number of recall tests as a consequence of those missed dates, despite the fact that my colleague Deputy Lisa Chambers had been asking questions at the beginning of December in relation to this issue. However, last night, the HSE could confirm to Morning Ireland that 6,000 women would have to be recalled for a test as a consequence, which underlines the scale of the problem. It's even worse than anybody would have thought here yesterday. Minister, this revelation and the manner in which it's coming out is once again causing worry and concern. The Government have failed to draw a clear line under the controversy. It made huge promises, but it didn't put the resources necessary to back up those promises. And now we are again in a situation of worry. On the 10th of January, through an FOI published in the journal.ie, we learned that the CEO of Sonic Healthcare, that runs MedLab, who in turn handled 50% of samples sent in through cervical check, wrote to Minister Harris on the 15th of June. The 15th of June, looking for what they termed his urgent intervention to address the unprecedented number of samples. And they warned him that without immediate action, we believe that the future viability of the cervical screening programme is in jeopardy. That was on the 15th of June. And Minister Harris didn't act in any way or urgency about it. On the 18th of October, Deputy Louise O'Reilly asked you, Taoiseach, during Leaders' Questions about the issue and about the backlogs. And again, you acknowledged there was a difficulty, you gave words of comfort, but nothing came of that in terms of extra resources or an action plan. Taoiseach, the hike in demand as a consequence of the changes last May have led to a massive delay and is undermining the system. And a scheme which is essentially important, and we all believe in that scheme, we want to restore confidence in that scheme, is once again under huge pressure. A rushed decision, not backed up by proper resources, has us back here again. And the Minister, despite many warnings, has put his head in the sand about dealing with it. Taoiseach, I want to know, how long has the Minister known, how long has the Government known the need for a recall test of 6,000 women? When was the Taoiseach informed about that particular figure? What measures are the Government taking? I've been in contact with GPs this morning. The first they heard about this issue was on Morning Ireland this morning, and they are the first port of call for people who will hear that story. What actions are you taking? Taoiseach, will Minister Harris publish all of the medical advice that he got before he took the decision to launch the free smear test process? And will he come into the House and take questions from health spokespeople in relation to every aspect of this issue, but more importantly, in relation to his plans to restore confidence in this hugely important programme?
Thank you, Deputy Taoiseach.
Thank you, Deputy, for raising this issue and to give me an opportunity to provide some clarity and, I hope, reassurance for women who are concerned. And I do want to take this opportunity before answering your political charges and questions to reassure the many women who understandably want to know exactly what is going on. In May, the Minister for Health made the decision to offer free out-of-cycle smears to women who were concerned about their health following issues which had emerged in relation to the cervical check controversy. This decision was made in good faith to address the considerable fears and many anxious women across the country. The Government's approach has always been to seek to provide reassurance to women and to be fully transparent about that. This clearly heightened concern and awareness around cervical check and the offer of free out-of-cycle smears has contributed to capacity issues. It's not a resource issue, actually, it's a capacity issue, and a backlog has emerged. We know that. It's been raised in this House multiple times. However, I want to reassure the House that the new issue which has arisen is separate to that backlog. It is entirely inaccurate to say that the repeat smears which women were offered have expired. The new issue is separate to this and relates to one company only of the three who were involved in providing our screening services. Quest Laboratories has advised Cervical Check of a specific problem in relation to standard HPV tests that have been carried out outside of the manufacturer's recommended timeframe since secondary HPV screening was introduced. The HSE's clinical review has assured them that this poses very little risk to women's health. Evidence shows that HPV tests of this kind are effective outside of manufacturers' recommended timeframes. However, as a precaution, they will be writing to women to attend their GP for a repeat smear test to confirm the result and to provide them with the reassurance that, of course, they are entitled to. The HSE expects that up to 6,000 women will likely be called for a repeat smear, and these tests will be processed by the laboratory as a priority. So the first thing I want to say, regardless of the politics of this issue, is that we all in this House have an obligation to reassure women and to give accurate information in terms of what is being discussed now and how we're going to solve it, to reassure people. That is priority number one. The second series of questions that you have, Deputy, Minister Harris isn't available next week, but is happy to come into the House the following week to take questions and to give a detailed statement to respond to any of the queries that you may have.
Reassurance, you seek to provide full transparency, and they are essential to rebuilding trust and confidence in a very necessary programme. But this information has had to be dragged out again. This information wasn't provided through the HSE or through primary care practitioners. It was provided in Morning Ireland. Surely the first port of contact, which should have been with Morning Ireland. The government were made aware of the second issue, we understand, in November. It's now the end of January. There would have been no attempt to communicate it were it not for the questions the Deputy Martin put in here yesterday. And the director of the screening programme said this morning that the demand and the backlog of tests is one of the reasons that this second issue was exposed. So there is a link. But the most important thing is we restore confidence. And I think the Minister may not be available, but it is essential maybe a junior minister will come in and take questions, because we don't have 10 days. We need to restore the confidence immediately. And finally, Taoiseach, the issue of capacity in the labs is essential, and you cannot continue to say it's a capacity issue and not outline any plan to deal with it. I understand in one of the labs they've reduced their staff from 16 to 4. So demand for screening has gone up by a third, but they've cut staff by 75%. You were made aware of the backlog on the 18th of October. You're the Deputy Head of Government. What did you do in terms of getting extra resources to address what you defined as a capacity issue?
Let me reassure this House, this is not a resource issue. When I say it's a capacity issue, it's a capacity in the labs. At a GP level, the significant increase in the demand for smear tests and out-of-cycle smear tests, which were being offered free of charge, GPs have coped with that increased demand extremely well. The challenge, my understanding of the challenge, has been at a lab level in terms of capacity, which isn't about resources. It's about the capacity of labs in terms of testing and throughput. In relation to the impression that you're giving that somehow the government is trying to hide something here, and we wouldn't be talking about this if it hadn't been for your leader yesterday, that isn't true, Deputy. The HSE has said that it was made aware of this issue in November. The Minister was made aware of the issue regarding secondary HPV testing in December. The issue was discussed at the Cervical Check Steering Committee, including with patient reps, who are working very hard at that committee on the range of issues involved and outlined in published weekly reports. The Minister sought regular updates, but a final report was not available to him in terms of the numbers involved or who they were. And so when this issue was raised yesterday, I don't believe he did have the information to be able to provide it until that was available today.
Thank you very much, Taoiseach.